Marty, the Prime Minister is with us in the studio.
Welcome, Prime Minister.
Great to be here. Good to be in Melbourne.
It's the first time I've met you. You seem fit and well and happy and together, which I'm not surprised by. I mean, you are the Prime Minister after all.
Well, I am happy in nature.
Yes.
I think that that's a good way to start the day.
It is. It's a better way to start the day than the alternative. You're just recently back from the Coronation. How was it?
It was terrific.
Not slow and long?
No, it was such a moment in history, and you had that sense that you were a part of history. And there was amazing people watching, of course, going on.
Who were you sitting next to? Because I saw Julie Bishop was next to Lionel Richie. Did you get that lucky?
No, we were with the realm. There are 15 realm countries.
Yes.
That is countries that have the king as our head
I
of
saw
state.
them walk in.
And so I was all week, we were between Antigua and Bahamas because they sit you alphabetically. So
Did they offer you any rum or ganja as they were sort of sitting next to you?
They did offer for me to come to the next Windies tour in Antigua.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's a
all
very
of that.
good
They were
offer.
like, you got to come. So I got to know more about Antigua than I thought I needed to know, to be frank. But
Still fun.
that's okay. They were nice people. And we were just behind the royal family and across from all of the other royals. So we got to see, of course, our own Princess Mary was just
Oh,
very
lovely.
close.
Nice.
Lovely.
From Denmark, of course.
Where do you stand
we
on
regard
the...
as our princess.
Yes.
Yes, she is. Where do you stand on the Republic?
Well, I'm a Republican, but I think that as Prime Minister, you've got to respect the institutions which are there. We were essentially having a coronation for our head of state in Australia, so it was important that we were there. And I got to choose a group of Australians. So Sam Kerr has scored the winning goal
Yes.
in the FA Cup again last night. She's relentless. She was the flag bearer.
Yep.
And I thought she was a really good choice. And we had a whole group of Aussies who are based in London, like Adam Hills and Nick Cave, and we had.
Oh, they were all around you too?
They weren't seated with us because they're not Prime Ministers of the realm.
No, they're not. Well
we
observed.
had, it was. Nick Cave would make an interesting Prime Minister.
I reckon.
I think.
Little darker, perhaps. I've just been flicking through.
The music was good.
The music was good?
The music was fantastic. There's something about a big cathedral.
Had you been in that cathedral previously?
Only for the Queen's
Passing funeral.
passing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Gee, you've been back and forward a bit.
yeah, well,
And for some reason, that's been part of the opposition's knock on you is that you've been overseas a lot.
pretty
But
ridiculous.
I don't remember
that Australia has to
ScoMo.
be represented at these things. so-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ScoMo seemed reluctant to leave the Shire a lot of the time.
Well,
Wow.
I'd be happy, quite frankly, to never get on a plane for the rest of my life.
Yeah, of
but,
course.
yeah, it's part of the job. So this Friday I'll be heading to Hiroshima in Japan for the G7 meeting, which
Right.
is the world's seven biggest economies.
Yep.
And this week I'm in, I'm here in Melbourne. Yesterday I was also in Adelaide. I'll be in Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Nhulunbuy up in Arnhem Land and Darwin before I go to Japan on Friday. So
Gee, it's a lot of...
it's a big country.
Yes.
But it's also
No,
it's
a
a
big
it's a
country.
huge job, and that's an understatement, obviously. But then having a personal life around that must be hugely challenging for you as well, particularly in a new relationship.
It is, but
How are you making time for that? Is that structured? Is it like Friday fortnight, 7 p.m. I've booked a room at the Darling?
it's a bit like that.
Yeah.
But the only time we can get by ourselves, of course, is at one of the PM's residences at the lodge or at Kirribilli. So my puppy is always glad to see me when I come home. I've got to say that.
I wasn't sure what you were talking about. This could have gone either way for me then. But you were very happy to stay at the lodge, unlike previous Prime
Yeah, it's
Minister.
a great residence, and it's more private
Yeah,
than the Sydney
a big wall
residence.
around it.
But my electorate's in Sydney, so I, of course, do spend some time there as well. But I base myself essentially at the lodge.
First divorcee to become Prime Minister. was a very public divorce for you as well, wasn't it? It must have been an incredibly challenging time for you and your ex-partner personally.
It was, but you live in the public eye, so it was very difficult for me personally. My wife Carmel made a decision that she wanted to move on with her life. It came as a surprise to me. I've spoken about that before, but it was something that
Totally out of the blue?
it was. Yeah, it was New Year's Day. So clearly it was a decision had made. Our son had reached 18, had graduated from school, and so she made that decision, which I found difficult, but just had to accept that she, of course, had a right to do that. So I didn't quite understand it. So
When did you feel like
I had to accept it rather than understand it?
When did you feel like you were coming good after that?
I went away in March, so it was January 1. I went away to London to see friends and to Lisbon. I had 2 weeks to clear the air, determine what I wanted to do with my life, whether I was going to run again in the election in May.
Tinder profile.
All of that. No, I never did that.
Oh, really?
In spite of some of the silly stuff that's been written. Of course I didn't.
Yeah.
And
It's fine if you did.
it would be fine, except you'd all know about it.
Yes.
Of course.
So, I just came to terms with it.
And then, of course, you met Jodie in Melbourne sort of 14 months later.
Yeah, met Jodie here in Melbourne.
I bet you couldn't believe your luck.
I couldn't. I've been very lucky to find someone to spend time with and to have a terrific relationship with.
Is it awkward finding language to use around that as a Prime Minister, to be having emotions attached to that new relationship and find language that we're all going to feel okay with? Because men still find it difficult to say, I'm in love with my partner and we're having a loving time.
Indeed.
I'm with you.
Thank you for that, Marty. But no, it's great.
Yeah,
and
it's good.
And it has been really important. I have a very complex job that involves a lot of pressure, and having someone to spend your life with, your personal life with, along with my son, is fantastic.
That is lovely. Then, of course, big life change for you when you had a car accident in Marrickville with a 17-year-old kid who ended up getting pinged for negligent driving. So he's T-boned you.
It was he just went on the wrong side of the road.
And so bang.
So he hit the front corner of my car, which was a complete write-off.
And could have been a very different outcome for you if that had been a foot the other way.
Oh, absolutely. I was in the car driving. I was very close to my home in Marrickville, going up a hill street, it's called. So there's a hill, funnily enough. And I was going quite slowly, thank goodness. And he wasn't. Clearly just was not paying
in the wrong
attention.
lane. Yeah.
And just came
And
across,
whack.
bang. And I thought, as the car was heading towards me, I thought, this is it.
I'm in trouble.
This is how it ends. It was
God.
it was not really scary. It was just
An observation.
Matter of fact.
I am in trouble.
Yeah. And then the bang, and then realising, okay, I'm still here, and making sure that, I wasn't, I hadn't lost anything. But,
Well, it gave you a wake up, didn't it? Because you then went on, lost a lot of weight, started, I'm assuming, to cut back on a bit of alcohol. Not that there's any suggestion that was ever an issue, but you start to look after yourself, and here you are looking really fit and well.
I got fit. I dropped almost 20 kilos.
Phenomenal.
And just lived a lot more healthier lifestyle. Because one of the things that I'm one of those blokes who are hopeless at going to the doctor, like many of us are. And so when you get everyone from I had an orthopaedic surgeon and a cardiologist and a haematologist, I didn't even know what that was before. But I had all these people looking at me to check that everything was all okay. And I thought, oh, well, I'm doing okay. But but I can't take it for granted. So it really provided that impetus to get fitter and to make sure I looked after myself.
Well, you've ticked every box on the way through that a Labor Prime Minister can tick, short of ACTU. I mean, you've done everything else. When you look back over your career getting to where you've gotten, what are you most proud of?
I think my resilience, that I've hung in there. I've stayed true to my values, and I think I've done and made a difference.
And you've shifted over time too, because the early days you were probably considered further to the left than you are now.
Yeah, well,
so some of your ideology must have changed along the way.
Of course, if you're not growing as a person, if you're not learning, if you're not prepared to change some views, then that's called arrogance, I think. If you think you know everything when you're young. I learn something new every day still in this job. And my mentor was a fellow called Tom Uran, who was a magnificent guy. He was a minister in the Whitlam and Hawke government.
Canberra legend.
Former prisoner of war of the Japanese. He lived an extraordinarily difficult life. But he used to say to me, son, you've got to grow every day. You've got to learn something new every day, and you've got to grow as a person every day. And that's the philosophy that I have, is to try and learn something new every day and to try and grow as a person.
Are you worried about the voice to Parliament? Are you worried about the referendum? Are you worried about, if that doesn't get up, how that looks and is perceived?
Look, I'm worried about the impact on Indigenous people if it doesn't get up. I'm worried about the way that Australia will be perceived. This is a pretty gracious and generous request. It's simply asking to be recognised that our history didn't begin in 1788. We should be proud that our history includes sharing this continent with the world's oldest continuous culture, and that should be a source of pride. And secondly, we should just listen to people, ask them if we're going to have an impact on them. That's just really common courtesy. And importantly, you get better results when you involve people in things that impact them. If people were going to change around this studio here, they probably would ask you, what's your view?
Contractually, they have to ask. Yeah, separate chat. Part of the deal. The criticism of you and the government was that you were never clear from the outset on what the voice actually looked like and meant for people in the suburbs, and then that clarity may have come too late. Is that a regret?
No. The referendum won't be held for many months. So for a whole lot of your listeners, they will focus from now going forward. We haven't passed the legislation yet. It'll be sometime between October and December. And the truth is that overwhelmingly it won't have an impact on most people's lives. It's not about everyone because it won't impact. There's no right of veto, none of that. That's all just nonsense sort of scare campaigns. But it just might make the lives of the most disadvantaged group in Australia better. We still have 10-year expectancy gap in life. We have the highest incarceration rates. We have gaps in health, housing and education outcomes, and we need to do better. And we've tried telling people what's good for them from Canberra. How about we give listening a go? And that's really what this is about.
I'm aware that you push for time. What are you in town for?
I'm in town to look at bulk billing. I'll be in Paran in a little while.
I was going to do that today. Snap, you and I doing the same thing around bulk billing.
To talk about, we're tripling the incentive, so we're assisting bulk billing. And yesterday I was in a childcare centre up at Diamond Valley. Last night I gathered with some of the faithful in the Brighton Hotel.
Lovely.
Which was a good gathering. I don't think many Labor Prime Ministers have been to the Brighton Hotel.
I wouldn't have thought so. It's been really lovely meeting you and having a chat. Enjoy our beautiful city. I know you've got other things that you need to get to now, so thank you for your time, Prime Minister. It's been lovely having you here.
Thanks very much, Marty and team. It's been great to be here.